Hello, I'm Casey.
And I'm Sally.
And this is
Render the
Darkness. It's so long that time. All right, so this one, we're coming at you with our first case out of Delaware. Fun fact, crocodiles can't stick their tongues out.
Interesting. I wonder why.
Because they're attached to the roofs of their mouths. Aha, I actually did look that one up.
Really?
That's what it said.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Did not know that little piece of information.
Didn't know it either. That's why it's a fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact.
Hopefully you can learn something. This is the Hauntings of Fort Delaware. We already did that.
I'm going to do it again.
Well, I missed it.
Do stuff.
Okay, so Fort Delaware was established in the 1800s. I read they started building it around 1848-ish and officially finished construction around 1859-ish. The fort is located on Peach Patch Island, which is located in the Delaware River. Say that 5 times fast.
That's what I was like.
It's also said to be one of the most haunted places in the world.
In the world.
In the world.
Okay.
A little more about the history before we get into the ghost stories. It used to be used as a prison during the American Civil War and housed mostly Confederate prisoners of war. It's noted that a large majority of the soldiers were imprisoned here were prisoners that were captured from the Battle of Gettysburg. It's been documented by the time the war actually ended, Fort Delaware had held between 32,000 to 34,000 soldiers. And there's records of at least 2,400 of them dying in or at the prison.
I was about to say, I wondered how many actually died there.
Yeah, well, I read in another source that it was closer to 2,500, so just in case, I'll throw it in there. But most of the sources said 24. It is important to note that the living conditions reported at this time, they were pretty intolerable and pretty inhumane. The conditions that they had caused a lot of the deaths of the soldiers, and if they didn't cause it, then the conditions were so bad that the soldiers would choose to unalive themselves. Others would die by disease, by injury, and by being brave enough to attempt an escape. And just on a side note, and I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but I read it in several resources, and also just by looking at the pictures of it, the fort was designed basically in the shape of a pentagram.
Ooh.
So it was definitely a star. I'm just saying. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but
What was the name of it again?
Fort Delaware. You couldn't remember Fort Delaware?
My memory is terrible. Leave me alone.
Again, we're in Delaware.
I'm almost 42. Goodness.
Okay, so while a portion of the prisoners were initially buried on the island, it was quickly realized that the water levels of the island wouldn't allow for the bodies to actually remain in the ground. So they started rising, and so subsequently the bodies were actually transported off the island to be buried at Finns Point National Cemetery, which was located in Pennsville, New Jersey.
Oh. It does look pretty neat. That's kind of cool.
It does. It looks like a pentagram, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And the cemetery is actually located just across the river of the island.
Okay.
So, from what I understand, like part of the island like faces New Jersey, and the other part of the island is facing directly towards Delaware. That being said, you can't have a location with that much recorded death and history attached to it and not have some ghost stories.
Gotta have the ghosties.
Gotta have the ghosties. Beat you to it.
There's some animosity behind that one. Like, God. think she likes my ghost fingers.
I win. My ghost fingers. All right.
God. Hey.
Fun. All right, so let's start with what I would consider to be the most popular haunting of Fort Delaware based on just the stories and the evidence of her existence, and that is the ghost that has been deemed the Lady in Black.
Ooh, Lady in Black.
So a little different than the traditional Lady in White. This haunting is said to be located in the kitchen. It's thought that the spirit is that of a slave woman who used to work there. I read she's been reported as having a scar on her face. She's been reported many times, as well as there's even a picture that has been taken of what people believe to be her. The picture's pretty creepy. I've seen it. And the picture can be found in the book Civil War Ghosts at Fort Delaware, History, Mystery, Legend, and Lore by Ed, I hope I say this right, Okonowicz. And you can also find the picture online.
Oh, look at the picture.
Go look at the picture. There have been reports that she likes to move things around in the kitchen and randomly place things in places for people to try to find, and she's not shy about making her presence known. The next spirit, thought to still be roaming the island, more specifically the fort, is that of Private Stefano. Originally from Italy, he had joined the Union Army and was assigned to Fort Delaware. His role was to assist in and help in caring for some of the prisoners, which were mostly the generals who were, they weren't held in general population, but they were actually held across the other side of the island to ensure that they didn't have the opportunity to engage with any of the soldiers that were enlisted underneath them. They were kept right above what was called the Sally Port. So they were actually located like at the Sally Port entrance area. Their rooms were.
Okay.
So remember earlier when I mentioned the water levels? That meant that when it was hot and humid, it was really humid. More than normal. Stefano, who spoke very little English and was very eager to please in hopes that he would rise quicker in ranks, he was known for running around everywhere that he went. I should also mention that in order to get to the general's rooms, he had to run up and down quite a few stairs, and I believe that these stairs were actually granite, which really makes for a dangerous situation when you combine granite with humidity and moisture.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Stefano, this would prove to be very much true. The conditions, combined with his insistence of not slowing down, despite being warned many times to slow down by the other soldiers, Stefano would meet his untimely death on those granite stairs leading to and from the general's rooms. It's said that he slipped and fell head first down the stairs, and he would actually succumb to his head injury or from blood loss stemmed from his head injury. And I also read in another source that he had broken his neck as well.
Ouch, I couldn't even imagine. That'd be so painful going down granite stairs. Oh.
Yeah, he was young too. Like, he was like in his early 20s.
Oh, poor guy.
His body would be found at the base of the southern stairwell. I have a hair that is driving me nuts. Okay, I got it. Sorry. Some say they have seen blood on the stairs still there to this day, and they can very much feel the presence of Stefano still lurking about. Next, we're going to travel to the mess hall. This is another location believed to be haunted. There have been claims of a woman in a closet being far too small for a woman to be in. She's been reported by workers, and there's even a story of her making an appearance in one of the ghost tours where a park historian was reading an Edgar Allan Poe poem. You might know it, called The Raven.
Love it.
Incredible piece of writing. Anyways, during the reading, which was held in the mess hall, it was claimed by onlookers that the woman had actually come out to clean the mantle during the reading. At least 4 people confirmed seeing her at this moment, and they claimed that they didn't say anything because they were convinced that she was part of the act.
Yeah.
She was not. Next, we'll talk about a story about a type of way that the captured soldiers would often try to escape the island. And it's also believed that the way that they tried to escape the island in this particular way may be the reason that some of their spirits never actually moved on from the island. So, I mentioned earlier about the dead being transported to Finns Point National Cemetery due to water levels of the island. Well, some of the prisoners were so desperate to escape that they would crawl into the caskets that were set to be transported on what became known as the death boat.
Oh.
Some of them with the plans of hoping they could make it to the woods next to the cemetery when the soldiers burying the caskets weren't looking, and others who had made plans with some of the people in the town that were determined to help the prisoners escape due to believing in what they were fighting for being the right thing, and other townspeople who just felt sorry for the prisoners due to the known horrific conditions of the island. It's believed these plans didn't always go accordingly. Sometimes the escapees wouldn't make it out of the caskets, causing them to be buried alive, or sometimes they would make it out of the box, but being so deathly sick from the conditions on the island, they would die after. And that was, the ones that were being rescued by the sympathetic town folk. And the town folks in that situation would more often than not be forced to bury the bodies at somewhere where they would be hidden so that they wouldn't get caught trying to help a prisoner escape.
Right, yeah.
It's believed that the spirits of these prisoners are restless and roaming due to never making it home to rest in a peaceful place.
Oh, well, that's sad.
I even read in a couple of sources that there's a little boy that was said to roam the parade ground area who was one of the ones who had attempted to escape through hiding in the coffin method. I read that one of the guards that was supposed to be set to bury the coffin, he was supposed to open it to let the little boy out. But unfortunately, so the story goes, they had a guard change before the coffin could make it, and the little boy ended up being buried alive.
A little boy?
Yeah, there were, you got to keep in mind that some of the workers there, their families were living on the island but they also had, I don't know, I read it was a little drummer boy. I don't know.
Oh, that's terrible. Poor baby.
But there were kids on the island. I don't think they were prisoners, but
yeah,
there were kids of some of the family members of the people who. Because there was it was kind of like set up like a little town at one point when they first did it. I don't know. I know that as far as the history of the island goes, it wasn't initially intended to be a prison.
Okay.
So when it first became a prison, it wasn't set up like a prison because it wasn't its original intention.
Yeah.
And that they had built onto it afterwards to try to accommodate for the amount of prisoners that they were getting. But even then, they didn't make it big enough to accommodate.
Gotcha.
Which is part of the reason why the conditions were so bad is because it was never meant to be used as a prison. Right. It just kind of became that.
Okay.
While I'm on the topic of children's spirits thought to be on the island, I read another story about a boy in a red shirt that was reportedly seen. This spirit is said to be the spirit of a boy who had actually drowned in the river and was swept onto the island where his body was found.
Aww.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I read it, so I'm including it. Another ghost thought to still be on the island is that of Confederate General James J. Archer. He at one point was sentenced to solitary confinement for 3 months due to being caught trying to make plans for an island takeover with the other prisoners. For those 3 months, he would be kept in misery in a dungeon that was lonely, dark, damp, and had no windows, living on nothing more than a sparse portion of bread and water.
3 months.
3 months. By the time the general was released from his confinement, he was weak and sick. I read he was already sick before he was actually put in there, but even if he wasn't, he most certainly was sick upon being taken out of it, and he died very soon after. There have been dozens of reports of people seeing a mysterious man dressed in a gray uniform with a long beard roaming around the area that the general was held in confinement. Some have even been lucky enough to catch him in a photo or two, or at least they believe to be him, which is pictures of orbs and stuff around that area.
Cute.
There's been reports of lights being on in areas that hold no light. Strangely, the lights reported mostly by workers who check in on the island or actors practicing on the island for upcoming reenactments during the months that the island is closed. They say that there's no reason there should be any lights on in any of those areas because they're not areas that are used during those times. I think they're closed there's like 4 or 5 months out of the year that they're closed.
Okay.
And that's when they take advantage of the opportunity to practice their skits and stuff that they do.
Mysterious lights.
There have been reports of a Confederate soldier who has no head. He's said to carry it around with him. There have been reports of a man in a black cloak walking around by staff. He's particularly strange because he's usually reported being seen in a restricted area on the second level corridor. And people have also seen him running around in the parade ground. Well, not running, but roaming. A lot of people, including staff, believe that some of the spirits trapped on the island might not have always been trapped there, but rather were drawn back due to the exact replication of the island's old settings during the time that it was being used as a prison. And that belief is just because they think the spirits are attached to... Because like one of the things that they rebuilt was from the actual original blueprint of the original piece that was on the island.
Okay. Oh.
So some people think that's what's drawn some of the spirits back to the island. And if you look at the pictures of the island, it's pretty impressive how exact the replicas are.
Mm.
There have been reports of people being touched, hearing screams, whispers, seeing spirits, feeling cold and warm spots, hearing footsteps, seeing apparitions, and seeing orbs. And then there's just the overall eeriness, not only of the island itself, but of the fort as well. Sorry.
It's okay, I understand. Speaking's hard sometimes.
It is. Sometimes words are hard.
Yes.
And it's just been described as like a really dark and heavy feeling.
Well, I can imagine
being there. There have been many paranormal investigations done on the island, with almost every investigator having experienced at least one thing during their visit. Nice. It's been featured on the History Channel a couple of times, and they're still giving ghost tours to this day. And they still do the reenactments on the island as well.
Oh, awesome.
If you're interested in taking a tour of the island, I'll attach a link to the show notes that will provide all the information you need for that, as well as how to purchase tickets. I think I read the ghost tour is usually around 3 hours long, so if you're planning on going, they ask that you please plan accordingly, because the only way that you can get on and off the island is by a ferry that only goes certain hours of the day.
Makes sense.
So I would highly recommend you go take this tour.
I would do it if we lived close to Delaware.
Yeah, you can only get there out of Delaware, I read. So you have to go out of the Delaware port side. You can't go through the New Jersey side to get there. And that's it. That is my case on the hauntings of Fort Delaware.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty interesting. It would be a very interesting tour to take. I think I also read that they do the tours at night.
Ooh, that would be like... They do them during the day and the night?
Yeah, I think they have like two. I think they do one from like 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Or no, that's 6 hours. I don't know. They do. I don't know. There's a link. There's a link.
Well, I'm just saying that
you're opening a big mouth, Casey. You don't know the information. Don't say it.
I would prefer to go at night. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, there ain't no way in hell I'm going at night.
Yeah.
Out of your mind.
You have to go during the day, and then I'd have to go during the night. And we could, compare notes.
We could. That brings me to way in the future. We're going to fast forward all the way to July. We are going to have a live recording in July when we are going to be staying at the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Yeah.
For anybody that knows anything about it, it is extremely haunted. Fallon actually covered that in a case, I believe. Did you not? But you mentioned it.
Yeah,
you mentioned it. But we haven't actually covered it yet. But it is a very haunted hotel in Arkansas, and we have booked our room officially. We will be staying in July. We will be doing some recordings for the show.
Yeah, we're going to be, me and my husband are going to be in Theodora's room, which is the second most haunted room because the most haunted room, which is 208, was taken. So,
I will be across the hall because fuck that. But I will be joining and participating. I just won't be sleeping there.
yeah,
There's no way I'm going to be unconscious in that room. It's just not going to happen. I want to be awake and alert and aware.
But I do plan on, while we're sleeping, though, is to have my phone plugged in and recording the entire time we're asleep.
Y'all may hear her getting woke up by some shit.
Yeah. Ooh. See what happens.
Anyway, that's like way off in the future.
Yeah.
For this moment, focus on Fort Delaware and taking a tour.
Yeah, take a
tour. If you have been to Fort Delaware, if you're close to Fort Delaware, you know a little bit more about the ghost stories of Fort Delaware, please feel free to message and chime in and let us know. We'd love to hear all about it. You want to be a guest on the show? You want to tell your story? We would love to give you a platform to do that on.
Yeah.
Message us. Hit us up. Let us know.
Yeah.
Other than that, as always, thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Please give us a like, a share, a follow, a subscribe, anything of that kind that helps us out a whole lot. And we wouldn't be able to do what we do without you guys. So
thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. I don't know why I keep going in voices.
I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know why. I just do.
I don't know.
It happens.
You'd think you were the Gemini.
I'll be a Taurus.
I know. Anyway, that's our time, guys. Thank you so much. We are Render the Darkness.
I don't know if I should do my little hands or not.
I'm going to be offended if you don't. You should start it that way every time. Like flutter your way to it.
I wasn't sure if I should do it. I'm like, I don't know if I should do this.
Bye.
Okay, TikTok.
Okay, hold on. I got buttons to push.